Line's good.
Never on!
Whoa.
Hard! Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
The hair high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham. Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, hello. I'm here. Everything is good. It's been a while since we spoke, but how are you doing?
Doing okay. It's pretty smoky here in not only the nation's capital, but a lot of Ontario and Quebec.
Yeah, big wildfires burning all over the country. Of course, hoping everybody out there is being safe and wishing everyone the best. It's always devastating to hear these reports of all the destruction that these fires are causing. It's pretty dry out there, so we gotta be careful.
Yeah, I wasn't paying too close attention, I have to say. I knew there was a fire near us. And this morning, we're recording this on Tuesday, I woke up to the very distinct smell of smoke in my house. Like I was surprised.
Yeah, and yesterday I sort of had been alerted to the fact it was going to get bad. And then, today, like you say, not great. I wore a mask walking outside today, Sean. Yeah. That was my solution. And I think it worked. I think it worked for the most part, but we're hunkered down here in the house due to some COVID, which is still around. So if you're out there and you're sick, stay home.
Yeah, so you got a couple of reasons there to wear masks there, Scotty, over there. And hopefully everyone is being safe out there. Certainly we've seen what was going on and is going on out in Nova Scotia, here in central Canada, of course, out west as well. Some scary stuff out there. So hope everyone is doing well and keeping safe as best you can. And we'll try to provide a little light entertainment, talking about some curling here in the summertime. Scott, summer season, one of my favorite times for our shows. A little peek behind the curtain. We have not recorded in over a month. We did not record in May. All of the May episodes that we released were recorded in April.
That's right.
And that was mostly because of our schedules here, there, and everywhere in May, Scott.
Yeah, we were both super busy with work stuff. And as much as we love getting together and recording, we are getting paid to do other things. So they tend to take precedence. But yeah, we've got a good one today. We've got some ideas back in the hopper for the summer episodes. So looking forward to them. Like you said, they're always fun to research and talk about. And yeah, they're good shows.
Yeah, so this is one that you've done the research on. You've delved into the numbers. And the idea for this came from Albert Anderson, who tweeted at us back in April after our last recording session. But Albert wrote in and asked about playoff formats. So the specific request was, I'm hoping you can really nerd out on Bonspiel/playoff format options. And Albert, just you wait, my friend, just you wait. So the question is, what do the different formats do? Why would organizers choose one or another? And in a sport like curling, Albert says that the preference is that the top seed gets an extra life, essentially the page type of a system, and not as much liking the WCF format in comparison. The preference for the page over the WCF format, saying, why would WCF make that choice? What benefits or preferences does it imply? And Scott, you've gone and looked at some of the numbers of the different playoff formats to discern whether or not there is a distinct advantage or where the distinct advantages might be. And we'll go through those, and then I'll talk about it from maybe a fan perspective, because I've come up with 9 formats that have been used or are currently used across the sport at the highest levels. And we will discuss it from a purely fan perspective. But let's start with the numbers, Scott. So what formats did you look into?
So I looked into 3 different formats. So I looked into men's and women's world championships, as well as Canadian men's and women's championships during the playoff era. Now, I'll say that I only went back on the Brier to 1980 because, or to the Scotties to 1980, because before that, the Brier was just a round robin winner. And the women's event before 1980 was, they did have playoffs, but I said, well, I already did the research to 1980, so I'm not going to go back further for the men.
Okay, so we got a 43-year sample size. Has it been the same playoff format the whole time?
No. So
okay, so obviously the bubble, right? So what I can say, right? So the bubble was different. The bubble was 3 teams, semifinal, first place straight through, and then they've added the Friday Fun Fest format this year, which is changing slightly. So 3 teams from each pool, 6 teams total. 2 get eliminated into a page. They're going to keep that moving forward, just slightly different on the Friday. And then before that, the traditional page. So is that what we have?
So we've had the traditional page, the Friday Fun Fest, like you said. We've also had 3-team playoffs, quite a few actually.
Oh, so not just the bubble.
Not just in the bubble. There was the 1 year in the bubble that it was 3-team, but also before that. Also for the Worlds, for men's Worlds, they sort of alternated between 3-team and 4-team. And I think it was just because there was 2 teams tied for third. So they made it, put them in the semifinal.
Just have a semifinal.
So yeah, going backwards then, we've had the page playoff system in Canada that's been around since 1995 or 1995 for both. And before that, we had 3-team playoffs in both the Brier and the Scotties before the page was introduced. 1 year with the 4-team semis in the Scotties, and I think the third place team was tied. So they just said, hey, let's go. In the Worlds, we've had the 4-team page, the 6-team page, where the top 2 teams get a bye. We've also had the straight 4 teams in a semifinal, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. And that's the most common system that we've had going back through the World Championship system.
Okay.
Then, of course, you've got the straight up round robin, which happened for the first 4 years of the men's Worlds, 59 to 63. So I did go back and count those, but there's only 4 of them, 5 of them. So it's not a good sample size. And Canada won them all. So 100% of the teams that finished first won the round robin.
That's a real groundbreaking research there. You could.
It really is, Sean. You know, it
go
really
over
is.
Stats Inc. on that one.
I think I can build my resume based on that. But I can tell you that based on my research, overall, from all of the World Championships, all of the Scotties, all of the Briers that have been played in the playoff era, that 74.1% of the time, the winner has been from either the first or second place in the final standings.
Okay. 74.1% of the time, independent of format.
Independent of format.
Okay.
Now I'm really trusting that my calculations are correct, and if I find errors or if anybody finds some errors, they can correct me.
Okay.
So then the next playoff system, Sean, that I looked at, I said that the round robin 100% of the time. That's a little tongue in cheek there. So then the 3-team format.
So this would be second and third in a semifinal. Winner plays first place.
That's right.
Okay.
So in that instance, only 57.14% of the time does the team that got the bye directly into the final win the event.
Okay.
So that's a little lower than you might expect.
It's pretty much a crapshoot then. It's not that much better than a 50-50 chance. It's kind of one game, like two teams that at that point you would think are relatively equal. Then you would expect there to be a pretty big balance or a decent balance between that, because it's one thing to have the difference between first and sixth place play each other, but first and third, first and second in most fields are going to be pretty equal.
Yeah.
So you could account
So
for that
then-
percentage of one. The team in first is going to be a little better, obviously, over the course of a week. So a little better, whether it's just ice, the way they're playing that week, whatever it is, or they're just better overall. And then you have to count probably a little bit for the fact that in most of those occasions, or I assume in most, that the team that's going through the semifinals playing back to back are 2-1,
Yeah.
where the other team's coming in fresh. The never-ending debate about what you want. So that would indicate that the bye is maybe a little bit better.
Yeah. It's rust or rest, right?
Yeah.
So then if we go to the 4-team straight semi,
Okay.
I got 70.3% of the time a team in first or second is going to win that event. So each of those teams you'd figure would have an advantage in their semifinal games.
Yeah.
And so the chances that they meet in the final are higher. And so that makes sense that that's a higher percentage are going to win if they're in first or second.
Right. But there is no actual advantage. I guess they get last rock in the first end, which does provide a statistical advantage to
Yes.
them. But other than that, there's no major advantages to finishing first or second.
No. So that one to me seems like the most crapshootish, given, like you say, that the advantages of getting hammer are pretty minimal. And then the odds that they are both in the game, are better than 50-50, that they both get to the final. So then one of them is going to win.
Right. And it allows for the possibility of an upset too in one of the semifinal games, but the higher seed winning the final as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So the majority, obviously, as the number shows, the majority of times your top teams are going to win.
Yeah. So then the interesting one coming back is the page playoff. And what I did here is finishing first or second gets you a free life, right?
Yes.
But in my opinion, or in what I was thinking of, was that losing that first game, it doesn't, like, if you come back through and win, yeah, it's a little more impressive, but that shouldn't count as like getting an advantage from that 1-2 game.
Why? But it did. You lost.
It
the
did.
That's
but,
the advantage that you just got.
But the real advantage is if you win that game. So if you win that page playoff game, whether you're the first or second seed, that's the advantage I wanted to track. Like, how much of an advantage is it?
Okay.
And I found that the winner of the 1-2 game in the page playoffs wins the event 65.4% of the time.
Wow. That's huge.
Which is pretty huge, right? And you can think of like the 3s or 4s that have come through and won, and it's not very often.
No. Well, Simmons.
So yeah, Simmons
won. I'm trying to think of others off the top of my head.
I mean, I have this.
I want to say Gushu one year, one of his 4. I could be wrong on that, certainly.
In 2022 or 2020. 2020.
Okay. It's okay. Yeah, that was a year with a big tiebreak group there. That one there in Kingston, there was sort of this jumble of people together, right? Epping was in a tiebreak.
And Brad Jacobs.
That was a
finished fourth.
Weird year.
And so most of them are recent. Like, my highlight here is like, if you won the page and the championship.
Yeah.
I have a no for when Nova Scotia beat Furby.
Yeah, Mark Dacey, yeah.
Because he actually won the round robin but lost the 1-2 game.
Okay.
And
he's still coming out of that game,
winning.
so there is an advantage gained.
Yeah. I have Quebec beating Ontario in 2006. And again, that was they were both in the 1-2 game.
Okay.
In 2007, I had Ontario finishing first in the round robin, but losing to Newfoundland, and then winning the event. So again,
Okay.
from the 1-2.
Yeah.
Here is Alberta winning from the 3 spot in 2010.
Okay. Kevin Martin. No, sorry, not Kevin Martin. That would have been
that was Kevin
Cooey.
Cooey.
Kevin Cooey's first one. Yeah.
2013, Brad Jacobs from the 4.
Yeah, those guys, they just got hot at the end of the week, and then they stayed hot all the way until the next February. Like, I don't think it felt like they didn't lose a game from like Thursday at the Brier through to the end of the Olympics.
Yeah, they just got hot.
Yeah.
And so then we've got 2 after that where Team Canada, Pat Simmons, as you mentioned, came from the 4 spot.
Yeah.
The next year, Alberta, I believe that was Cooey, also came from the 3.
Okay.
And then, the 2020 Brier. And then we had the 2021 Brier where Alberta came and won over Wildcard 2, 2021 in the bubble.
In the bubble. But so, yeah, that's not a page.
It's not a page. That was a 3. And then in the 6-team pager, the 6-team modified page, there wasn't enough data for me to really collect.
Sure. But again, so if you look at those numbers though, Scott, that you just went through. So if you win the page, you're looking at a 65% clip of winning the event by winning the 1-2 game. There are a few examples that we just went through of, say, Mark Dacey, of
Jean-Michel Menard.
They're coming through the 1-2 game as well. So if you were just to sort of take who came through the 1-2 game to win, take a few of those examples that we just talked about, we're looking over 70% at that point. So really important to get into that 1-2 game then.
Yeah, really, really important to get into that 1-2 game. And let me do a quick run through and see if I can count up, like including pages, if you're finishing in the 1-2, how good it is. Because by winning that game, yes, you're giving yourself a great chance. But by being in the game, even then, it's a big advantage.
And I wonder how much of that is associated with a mental thing. That's, you're in the 1-2 game. Obviously, you want to win it. It's a huge advantage to you if you can win it. But it's not. Maybe, I don't know. I've never obviously played in that game, but I wonder if it just means it's slightly less of a pressure-filled environment. The 3-4 is an elimination game that you probably scrambled into as well, right? The last draw or 2, very stressful to get into, especially for the 4th place team. Usually, a lot of times, to Vic's great pain, there is going to be a tiebreaker, or has been a tiebreaker, even though no more going forward. That puts you in a bit of a compromised position going into that 3-4 game. There's just maybe a lot of factors accumulated over the week. And then the reality too, as you said earlier, if you're in that game, it means that for the week leading up to it, you haven't been as good as the teams that are ahead of you. So whether they have a better read on the ice, they're playing better, they have just a better feel for how things are going, or they're better than you, which if you look at the Briers from 2008-9, where it was Howard, Martin, and really felt going into the week that everyone else was playing for 3rd place, there's just that reality that sometimes the field is stacked in that way. So those are things that obviously we have to look at, but it is kind of statistically interesting to get a sense of, like, I'm really floored by that 65% number, Scott.
Yeah, it's it was pretty improbable to me too. I'll get it to you by the end of the episode, but we should continue along with some discussions of the other systems, because these aren't the only ones, right, that we're seeing for playoffs.
No, so there are other systems. Now, we don't necessarily have numbers for these, so I wanted to talk about these from a fan perspective, because obviously from a player perspective, you can look at these and say, well, or from a organizational standpoint, like if you're Curling Canada, this is something that I think we forget every year in February and March when people talk about the format and who's there and all this. Like, there's one thing to have teams there, and I like the format where there are teams who are there who can't win. I like it. I think it's fun. It's different from everything else. I like the provincial representation. I like the uniforms. I like all that. All that said, Curling Canada isn't really in the business of wanting upsets, right? They don't want Nunavut to come through and win. Not that at this point in curling history, there's a team playing out of Nunavut that would be talented enough to do that as yet. But when you look at down the line, the teams that are, say, 6 to 10 in the rankings in the field, does Curling Canada really want them to win because of all the funding and Olympics consequences of world championships? So if you're Curling Canada and you look at this and say, well, my top team will win 57% of the time in a 3-team format, 65% coming out of that 1-2 game in a page, maybe we're looking at the page as being a better option. And this modified page where you can finish third in your pool but then be in the 1-2 game, maybe that's not the best if you want to ensure that the top team is going through, right? So these are things that at the organizational level you could look at, like statistically, as Curling Canada continues to move forward. And as we said, they're going to use a different format this year. But from a fan perspective, I've identified 9 playoff formats that are either in use or have been in use. Obviously, we talked about a few of them. So the 3-team semifinal final format, that's what has usually been used at the Olympic trials for Canada.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. Certainly at the Olympic trials, this gives you semifinal Saturday, final Sunday, one men's, one women's games. I really like that for a TV perspective. From a fan perspective, everything builds, and as long as you don't have too many teams in the field, I kind of like the 3-team semifinal into the final format. Quick, done, pack your bags, go home.
Yeah, and from the perspective of the numbers, what we saw, the number 1 team is going to win more than half of the time, which is sort of what you want. And also for Curling Canada, you want the best teams during the week to be there. And there's a better chance of that if fewer teams are in the playoff field. So if you're looking to get the best champion, fewer teams in the field is the way to go.
Yeah. Now, the ultimate way to get the best team in the week to be your winner is to just go with the round robin winner.
Yes.
Is this the champion? That's the way to do it. That's the way it's been done in the past. And as you did say, 100% of the time, if you finish first, you win the event in that format. Not great from a fan perspective, though, or a TV perspective. Like having that, I know it's more of a North American thing than a European thing, right? A lot of European football, right? I understand. It's just top of the table, you win the league. And I get that. But from a TV perspective, from a fan perspective, you like those big moments, and big moments tend to happen in the playoffs again, at least from our North American sporting viewpoint.
Sure. And as much as you want the best team to win, you also don't want there to be no drama at the end of the week. So like we saw this year, Silvana Tirinzoni's team was the best team by far.
Yeah.
Should they have just awarded her the trophy? Maybe. But then you also wouldn't have the playoff games, any sense of drama building at all. So it's a bit anticlimactic and also really terrible for TV.
Yeah, really bad for TV. But I don't know if that's the best example to use, Scott, because I feel like the playoffs are pretty anticlimactic too.
Well, they didn't have to be.
No, it's true. So then the other one is the page, the 4-team page. I guess I like this one only because I grew up with it. We grew up in the 90s. That's what we're used to. And I do like the idea, as Albert said, that you get this mulligan of sorts and those top 2 teams can play. I think the downside of it is when the team that as we saw this year in the Brier, when the team that loses the 1-2 comes back through and then wins the semifinal, it's like, well, we just saw this game last night. And the repeat of that matchup isn't always as fun, and it feels like over the course of the weekend, because there's that extra game, you're just seeing the same people a lot.
Yeah, you essentially get to the same results as you would with a 3-team playoff, but in one more game.
Yeah.
Or two more games.
Yeah.
I did finish those numbers, Sean, and we had a total of 85.9% of the time in the page, the winner comes from the 1-2 game. Yeah. So
you can see why Curling Canada likes it then too, right?
Yeah. You're getting the best teams winning the majority of the time, while also having the opportunity for a team that maybe slipped during the week to come back and win it, a la Pat Simmons, a la Brad Gushue, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and if the examples you're using out of the third place slot are Gushue, Simmons, Cooey, you're not doing too bad there either, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're definitely not doing too bad. And it sort of reduces the noise that can come with a straight up 4-team playoff, which I assume is the next one we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so the next one is the 4-team straight semifinal into a final. I think one of the things I don't like about this is that it doesn't necessarily reward or feel like it rewards finishing first or second. Whereas in the page, in the 3-team, there's the very tangible reward for finishing first or second in the page. Yeah. In this one, it just doesn't have that same feel, right? So whether it's a bye or whether it's a chance to come back after a loss, this one, I mean, the numbers back up that it's good to be first or second, but just from a pure feel perspective for a fan, you just don't get that same sense of an advantage. While at the same time, there's this, I find the timing of it always strange, of who plays in the afternoon, who plays in the night. Whereas in the page, at least there's this natural flow to it from 3-4, 1-2 to semi, right? When it's just semi, the sequencing of it, for whatever reason, always feels strange to me.
Yeah. And yeah, how do you pick which team does it when? Do you play the games both at the same time?
Yeah.
Do you let the teams pick stones from across the ice like the rest of the playoffs? Or I don't think that's the case right now. I think it's only for the gold medal game that you get to pick from across all the sheets. There's more room for noise there. If you talk to the players who've played in the Olympics, they'll always tell you that the semifinal is the most nervous game. Yeah. Because that's the one that'll decide if you get a medal or you still have to work for it. So a lot of pressure on that semifinal game. And because of that, it's not my favorite. Like, you can have a team that's rolling all week, runs the field 10-0, 11-0, and then, they get into a really tight game with a good team, happen to come up just that hair short, and boom, all of a sudden they're playing for a bronze medal when we know that they were the best team all week. So I prefer the page in that way, to give you the chance to have a hiccup, because maybe another team had their hiccup week 1 or day 1, like we saw with Scotland at the men's worlds this year, and pulled away at the end. And then Nicolas Edin was like, oh, my bad games were all at the end, and now I'm out. So I prefer the page to the straight semifinal.
Yeah. And I will say too, though, that is for like a fan or a TV watcher at the elite level. If you're at a local spiel, even a cash spiel, if it's somewhat competitive, I would hate that. Like, yes. Give me just semifinal, final, please. Even if I finish first, I don't want to sit around for a draw. Let's just play. Let's keep it moving. Don't hold up the line. Like, let's keep going. So from a local bonspiel perspective, the page or the 3-team first place through, like, no, thank you. Let's just keep it rolling, right? Because you want people in the building. I not that I've played a lot of single sheet games in my life, but whenever I have, I hate them. So I let's just get other people out there. Let's play. Let's have a good time. Right? The energy out there. Yeah. So from that perspective, from a local spiel perspective, I would prefer the 4-team just semifinal into the final. Now, another format, Scott, that we have not talked about and is relatively new in the World Championship is the 6-4-2. So top two teams get a bye. The sixth place team plays the third place team. Fifth place team plays the fourth place team in the not so quarterfinals, and then into semifinals. So it gets us to the same point as the 4-team playoff in that semi into a final. But the first and second place teams do get a bye into those games while the other 4 teams have to play. This one, I like it with the expanded field. If we're going to go 13 or 14 teams in the World Championship, fine. I'm okay with it. If we go back to a world where it's 10 teams, no thank you. But given the expanded field, I think I'm okay with it. From a fan perspective, because they play those qualifying games at the same time, it doesn't feel quite as long. So it's only 3 draws, I guess 4 if you count the bronze medal game, but who really counts the bronze medal game? So, of the possibilities, I don't think I would like 14-team field or 13-team field to a semi, to only 4 teams in the playoffs, to a semi and a final. So as a compromise, I think I like this, with a preference for maybe something different, but I don't know what.
So, Sean, there's not enough data to draw statistically significant conclusions, but in the 5 years that we've had this on the men's side and the women's side at the Worlds, one time has a team who didn't finish in those top 2 spots win.
Wow.
So you got to buy, you're basically guaranteed a chance to win. And that only time was when Silvana Tirinzoni in 2019 came from 4th to win. So every other time the winner's been 1st or 2nd and gotten one of those 2 buys. So we'll watch that going forward at Worlds. If if your team is not getting the buy, it's going to be harder, which makes sense because it's a longer road. You got to win more games.
That it's extra game, so then the other format, Scott, is the modified page that Curling Canada is using. And this year it's going to be a little different, where they're not going to do the elimination games first. It's going to be the seeding games first, then going into an elimination game, which I think I like a little bit better. But we can only assess what we've seen in action so far. I don't think I like that modified page. I like that 6 teams make the playoffs, that top 3 teams from each pool make it. But that Friday Fun Fest, you go from elimination game to seeding games. The Friday night just feels like I don't need to watch, especially since you're going into a page and you're going to see those 4 teams so much over the course of the weekend. So I was not the biggest fan of that version of it. I think this new version is going to be a little bit better, where we have seeding games first, then we'll go into elimination games. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go. You joke calling it a Friday Fun Fest, but I definitely make plans that Friday night to do stuff because what do I need to watch this for? It doesn't really matter. I'm going to watch those teams the next time, right? And when we talk about Team Carrie Anderson coming and winning the Scotties this year, technically they did it from the number 3 position. Or if that was 2 years ago, maybe.
No, they lost the Friday Fun Fest this year.
Yeah, I think this year.
Yeah,
I could look it up, but do we really think that they were the number 3 seed coming out?
Right.
Not really. They were tops in the championship pool. They lost 1 game, and then they got to play anyway. I think it's bad from a TV perspective too, or it was bad from a TV perspective, that the elimination game is Friday during the day. Yeah. And then Friday night, it's something that doesn't feel like it matters all that much. So you're not only potentially overexposing these teams who you will have seen over the course of the week, and then you're going to see them all through the weekend, but you're also doing so in a sequencing way that the more important game from a fan perspective is at a time when people are on average busier than not. So
That's
Yeah.
a bit of a problem. And yeah, I'm like you. I don't think I was not home for either of the Friday home fun fests
No.
this year.
And there's a reason that TV programs things in the evenings and not during the afternoon on a weekday. So we'll see this new format. It should be better. But we'll see. I would still prefer a situation where all the top teams play all the other top teams without getting eliminated. What we had in 2020, 21, 2020, 21, when we had the full championship pool.
Yeah, I like the championship pool. I really thought that format was great. I think I liked it more in the bubble than I did pre-bubble too, going just to the 3-team playoff. I think that's better than the page. I think for a TV perspective, it was better than the page. And it also allows everybody to participate, but kind of like golf where you have a cut and you see how that goes. Now, you have a cut in golf sometime, who knows, unless the commissioner of a certain organization completely loses his spine and capitulates and just forgets all the moral grandstanding he did over the last year, but that would never happen. So I do like the idea of the cut. So that was kind of nice in the curling context that everyone could be there, and it kind of builds the tension over the week.
Absolutely. Everybody's there. Everybody plays everybody good. No, yeah, you said it right, Sean.
Then Scott, we should talk too about now what is going to be Curling Canada's new playoff format. Some countries do this or a version of this. So what Curling Canada is going to do moving forward is a 3-team playoff, a semifinal. But we've talked about this on the show before. They're now going to do a best 2 out of 3 final, which I think from a fan and a television perspective is awful. From a Curling Canada perspective, okay, maybe. But if you're a fan, and especially the Olympic trials, that's the biggest travel event. People come in from across the country for the Olympic trials, and it does really well on TSN too. If you don't know when that game is going to be, or if that game is going to take place, I don't think that is a good thing for curling. You can make the case in the other sports where there's series and it's if necessary, whatever. That's never been what curling, at least in Canada, is. I don't like this from a fan perspective at all.
No, and like you said, if the goal is getting the best team, then in theory this should work. But you're right. If you don't know who is like when the actual deciding game will be, and it could end up on a Sunday afternoon against NFL football, then I mean, what are we doing, right? Like, it makes sense on paper, right? But I don't know if you're right. If you're somebody that's traveling to a place for an event and your big plan is to watch that final on Sunday night, but then all of a sudden that game's not happening because it was already decided. Both of them were already decided on Sunday morning and afternoon.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, because we could be looking at a scenario that it's Sunday at noon, and that's it, and the event's over.
Yeah,
and that's not good.
And then what, right? So, you take a bit of the noise out, but you're already going to do a good job picking one of the best teams with a 3-team playoff. Like I mentioned, the number 1 seed wins 57% of the time, and so by definition, the other part of the time it's going to be the 2 or the 3. So everybody did well. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, and just again, you hate to say, well, this one singular example, but I'm going to do that. Tracy Fleury against Jennifer Jones. If that's the first of a 3-game series, one, they probably don't make the mistakes they did. Let's be honest about that. But it's way less exciting if the game is the exact same.
Yeah, because it's just the first game. They probably, no, it was close, but like maybe you even get somebody shaking in a game where, they're down 4 with 2 ends to play and they don't have hammer. And then that's not good for TV. They're going to make them play regardless, but they might want to rest to get focused on the next game of the series. Right. So don't know if I like it.
Yeah. We'll have to
Actually,
see
no,
it.
I do know that I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see it in action. And again, other countries have done versions of this, but in Canada, it's the Olympic trials is kind of the pinnacle of it.
Yeah.
And from a fan perspective, again, players might like it. I understand why Curling Canada would like it. From a fan perspective, I don't think it's great. Another one that from a fan perspective, I don't think is great. The Swiss do this best of 7 series between the top 2 teams. I don't think we have to go too deep into this. It has the exact same issues as before. The difference between a best of 7 and a best of 3 after a week is that the best of 7 is just you're taking your 2 teams, putting them against each other, and allows for storylines to emerge over the course of a series. I still wouldn't like it from a fan perspective if my goal is to like watch the games and all that. But I can see why countries like Switzerland that frankly have had 2 principal teams on the men's and women's side say, all right, we're going to take the 2 of you, go play for it.
Yeah. And that's what we see in a lot of other sports here in North America is best of 7 series. It seems to be the sweet spot between not too short, not too long. It's going to more times than not give you the better team.
Yeah.
There is still room though for an upset, but it's a lot harder to pull an upset in a best of 7 than in a single elimination, even if that single elimination is after a round robin.
Pet peeve of mine, I will say, that we've gone through now the basketball and the hockey playoffs. I never want to hear the stat about the team that wins game whatever wins the series this percentage of the time, because every single one it's over 50%, obviously, because you win the game. Winning the game is good. You're going to improve your chance of winning the series if you win the game. It's so stupid. I hate it so much. Stop it. Like, hey, the team that wins game 5 in a 2-2 series wins the series. Yeah, of course they do. They just won the, like, knock it off. Like, winning the games is important. Thanks, nerds. Now, the final format, Scott, which we have not talked about, this is the one that the Slams tends to use, not always. A couple times this year, they went with the 16, the world format. But generally speaking, the Slams have used straight quarterfinal, semifinal, final. 8 teams in, 1 versus 8, then down to 4, then to 2. I think what hides this format a little bit is the around the ice coverage on the semifinals. Yeah. It kind of makes it less like in your face how bad I think this format is because that coverage is so good. And I really don't like this format in that if 1 through 4 semifinal final doesn't feel like it provides any advantage, especially in slams that are shorter events. And even if you go ABC draw, whatever, it's all essentially the same.
Yeah.
As long as you don't lose 3 games, you're going to get something tiebreaker into the playoffs. It really feels like there's no advantage to being a higher seed in these games. Like, again, last rock, sure. And in a shorter 8-end game, that's more pronounced than in the 10-end game. But ultimately, given how short the event is, if you get off to a tough start, if you're Kevin Koe, you get off to a tough start, you lose your first 2 games, then you win the next 2, then you're the 8 seed. And then you could be Bruce Mowat sitting there, hey, we finished first. All right, looking good. Who are we playing? Wait, what? Oh, what's that? I'm sorry, we finished first.
Yeah.
So like that's I think the big problem with it within the scope of the slams.
So yeah, I think the slams are its own beast. Obviously the teams are there to compete for the cash, and there's only 4 games in their preliminary stage, so or 4 or 5 games, whatever it is, but they're not separating themselves as much as you would in a full event round robin. So in that sense, sure, keep the playoff field big to give more teams the opportunity. You're going to have more noise. That's okay. Because it's just a smaller, shorter event, and that's going to happen. So from the Slams perspective, they want to give more teams the opportunity to win money, which is why the teams are there. Yeah. Also to be on TV for sponsorship. So, if more teams are in the playoffs, they do the around the ring so that every team can be shown. Their sponsors are more happy. So the reason behind that playoff format is money, and that's fine because can you remember who won all these slams? Like there's zero chance, right?
Yeah.
So, those events are fun. They're money makers for the teams and for the network. And that's their playoff format is the right one to meet that formula.
Yeah, to get that maximum exposure, which is, as you say, the point of those events to a certain extent. Certainly there's competition involved, but yeah, the exposure is key for the teams, for the events. So there you go, Scott. Those are the formats that have been or are currently in use within the sport of curling. As you say, not necessarily breaking any new ground here to say that in a round robin will benefit you to finish first and second.
Yeah.
Again, winning games beneficial.
Winning games good.
Yeah, that is the takeaway. So again, in the 3-team format, the team that finishes first place 57.14% of the time wins. In the Page playoff, the team that wins the 1-2 game 65% of the time goes on to win, and a team from the 1-2 game 86% of the time. So those top teams, independent of format, usually do go on to win, which is what you would expect. But those numbers are a little more heavily weighted than I might have guessed. I would have thought 1-2 provided an advantage, but not that much. So there you go. Some big numbers there. Scott, did anything in that surprise you?
What surprised me was that overall first or second is such a big advantage.
So I guess too, one of these things too is like how much of it is an advantage and how much is it better teams finish first and second?
Right. That's true. So I just ran, Sean, for the Page because I had the first or second winning, and then so I just ran it. If you finished first, winning the event. If you went, this doesn't count if you got the bye or whatever. So it's 44% or 44 out of 78, 56% of the time. If you finish first in the Page, you're going to win the event.
Okay. It's pretty good.
That's pretty high.
Yeah. So again, finish first.
Yeah, finish first. That's all you got to do.
That's it. That's all you got to do. So there you go. So Albert, hopefully that was enough of a nerdy deep dive for you into some of these playoff formats. If we missed any playoff formats, let us know. I think we had them all covered, but it's possible that we missed something out there. So again, Albert, thank you for the idea. If you all have ideas out there for other summer stuff you want to hear, let us know. And of course, as always, we do want to know about your summer spiels, your summer leagues. Scott, friends out at the Wine Country Curling Club have their Crush Bond spiel on Labor Day. It is back for a 2023 edition out there at Roseville, California at Skate Town Ice. $500 per team. Scott, let me quiz you on this. It says they're close to the airport, with the airport code being SMF.
SMF. Oh boy. That's got to be shoot, I know it. I'm just going to say Napa's airport.
No, so SMF is Sacramento.
Oh. I thought that was different. Ask me what in Canada, Sean, I'll get it.
Yes, I would expect you to get it. Let's go. YTZ. I don't know them all.
Toronto Island, Billy Bishop Airport.
There you go. So there you go. So if you're looking for a spiel out there on the long weekend, it's a long weekend both here in Canada and in the United States. Check out our friends down at Wine Country Curling Club there near Sacramento. And thanks to Katie for sending that one along. Thanks also to Jerry for ordering one of the hats. Scott, we have a Game of Stones dad hat currently being worn. I don't know if currently as we speak, but generally currently being worn in Belgium.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Excited to have that hat out and about, in Belgium, and hope the Bonspiel was really good. That they had there happened in May. both of us were out of town and unable to go out of town for that. So we were in other towns.
We were.
But I hope that was a great event, and one day we'll get there. One day we will. So thanks to everybody for reaching out with all that info. I hope Ryan McGee from Rocks Across the Pond, hope that struggle Saturday morning after his first game Friday night wasn't too bad. He said he did say that those Coors Lights really helped in the afternoon. Oh yeah,
loosen things up as they always do. So again, we love hearing about this stuff. So just let us know what you got going on, spiels, summer events, whatever it is. Let us know. You can reach out, GameOfStonesPodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter, Instagram @GameOfStonesPod, Game of Stones Podcast on Facebook, and of course head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. Past episodes are there. Link to the merch under the merch tab. Dad hats are there. We got the hoodies. We've redid the hoodies. They're their new style of hoodie. I have yet to order the new style. I'm excited to try it out though. So we got those. The toques are still available. So just check out what we got there over on the merch tab if you are interested. And of course, subscribe wherever it is you get your pods if you have not yet. Like, rates, comments, all that good stuff helps other people find the show, keeps us growing, especially in the summertime when there's nothing you want to do more than talk about a game played on ice when it's 40 degrees in Ottawa as it was last week. So it should be a fun summer. I'm looking forward to it, Scott. The new season officially starts soon. The Korean Nationals always come up faster than we expect, but I do like this time of year for the chats, as we said off of the top. I got some fun ideas, but Scott, as we head here into June, it is Pride Month. Bruce Mount was was inducted into the Pride Hall of Fame over there in Scotland, so congratulations to him. Certainly a very big year for him and for everybody who's celebrating Pride all across the world. Happy Pride to y'all. And now, Scott, we look forward to the summer. No softball for us this year. So how are you going to fill your Thursday nights?
Yeah, Sean, I'm gonna sub on a couple teams, hopefully. So I'll still be able to get my home run swing in gear. That should be fun. Sean, you mentioned that it's Pride Month, and I was like thinking, is our logo updated for Pride Month? Yeah, because we never changed it because we celebrate Pride all year long.
There you go. Yeah, it's we just leave it up now. That's really kind of, I guess, now the logo of the show, at least on Twitter and Instagram, or Twitter. I don't know.
On Twitter and Instagram. Yeah. So
that's just the logo now.
I like it. But I think I'll keep busy this summer. Got stuff to do, I guess. Go on a few road trips.
Yeah.
I'm going to see the Blue Jays play.
Nice.
One weekend, so that should be fun.
Good stuff. Well, enjoy the summer, Scott. Enjoy the summer. Everyone out there, we'll be back with you next week. And in the interim, of course, if you're out near any of these fires, do stay safe. If you're in the smoke areas, do follow all the suggestions of air filters, fans, whatever it is you need to do. Stay safe out there, as we'll be back with you again next week. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.